Hello and welcome to the Walk-Off, everybody. I'm Scott Belford. This is a very special edition of Long Toss. It is our Christmas holiday special here, and we've got the band back together, and we're going to talk some Blue Jays, where we're at, the state of this franchise heading into 2025. We've got our regulars here. So, number one, Joel was with us. He's coming right back. We've got Baseball Jen. We've got our producer, Johnny Eaton. And we are going to go around the horn and see how everyone is doing. I will start with this, all right? So, everyone in YouTube right now, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to hit that like button and subscribe if you're not subscribed, that's obviously very much appreciated. We're also going to do a thing where I'm paying attention to the chat this whole time, and I thought we'd have a little fun with it off the top, okay? So this is what was going on Blue Sky a few days ago, and Patreon member and friend of the show, Mark Draybert, had a Blue Sky tweet. I know that's not what it's called, but more or less this is what it is. So this is Ross Atkins and how he would react to certain situations. So I'm going to give you some examples here, and then if you, the viewer, wants to jump in and throw out some examples of a scenario and how Ross Atkins would respond to it, we'll have a little fun with that throughout the show and kind of go to chat and see where things are at. So here's the first example from Mark Draybert. Okay, he goes, you're driving off the road, steer to the left. Ross Atkins, we're definitely interested in the possibility of steering left, but we do have confidence in our ability to steer multiple directions and are excited about the opportunities in front of us. Johnny Eaton, you had one here that made me laugh. Johnny's is, from the beginning, our goal was to reach our destination. That certainly remains. I know that turning left may help us, and I'm committed to that. We have a responsibility to the fans to look into our process of turning, and we will do that. It comes down to load balance, and we are cognizant of that. All right? So again, these are Ross Atkins scenarios and how he would respond to them. One last one before we get into the show here and go around the round table and introduce everybody. This was from me. I said, left is a turn we've explored collaboratively as an organization extensively. Under the right circumstances, if the opportunity presents itself to turn left, we have the full support of ownership to do so. So again, feel free to drop your Ross Atkinisms into the chat, and we'll get to those throughout the show. We do have lots to get to, as much as nothing has really felt like it's happened outside of a Bichette haircut. But we do have stuff to break down, which we will get to before we get into our topics. Let's welcome back our panelists. All right, we're going to start with our producer, dressed all in his Blue Jays gear here, Johnny Eaton. Thank you very much for taking the reins of production here. And how was your weekend, my man? You ready for the show?
I'm as ready as I could be, considering I haven't done it since summer. So it seems to be going okay so far, so that's great. But if anybody notices anything weird, please add it to the chat so that I can make adjustments. I don't know, things might be too loud.
Let Johnny know your problems, people.
Yeah, I'll be your Fraser Crane for the day.
Fraser Crane for the day. All right,
I'm
and
listening.
then we have our two mainstays, and I'm so excited to get down into the nitty-gritty of where we're at, Blue Jays fans-wise. Baseball Jen, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you are sick, you're down and out, and getting some positivity out of you today might be difficult, but thank you for joining us again and toughing it out.
Twice in 1 week.
Twice in one week. It's like the old days. What?
Right? Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here and talk all things Blue Jays, and hopefully I can tough it out for the whole episode. We'll find out.
If we need to lose you halfway, it is what it is. We just appreciate you trying your best to be here. Our other panelist also did a show with us this week. Glad to be doubling down on two of our favorite guests. Joel the Flam, hey, Commie, welcome back, buddy. Thanks for making time.
Yeah, nice to be here. A festive walk-off long toss episode. So it's nice to gather this time of the season, talk winter meetings and all things Blue Jays
And all things Blue Jays. And our topics today are extensive and range from Blue Jays into other stuff that's going on around Major League Baseball. So we are going to get into the Vladdy extension talks. Obviously, there was a report that was floated out that he was offered a $340 million contract. This is from Carlos Barga. So depends on how much you read into stuff like this. However, all the noise has said that this was offered to him pre-Soto deal, which is actually good news for Blue Jays fans, because if that was offered to him after the Soto deal, it would definitely feel insulting and kind of like we're going to lose our franchise guy. So we are going to dive into that. We'll talk the Blue Jays' direction or lack thereof and what could save this offseason. And I know, Johnny, you and I were texting a couple days ago about the difference between savvy GM moves that are maybe unexpected versus just being a touch too clever and leaving holes unfilled. So we'll dive into that. Kyle Tucker, the mega star that is a top 10 baseball player, winds up getting traded on his final year of his contract. And this does pertain to Blue Jays land a little bit, because even though his age isn't comparable and does have 4 years on Vladdy, he is similar in the ilk of his talent and how much he is sought after. So I think that a Vladdy trade right now might look somewhat similar to what the Astros received from the Cubs. We'll dive in there. John Fisher continues to be a giant butthead and has, it feels like, just has it out for Oakland fans, because now that they're officially out of Oakland, they have started trying as an organization. We'll also get into the fact that there is a little bit of revenue sharing math going on, and that might have more to do with the A's actually getting players right now than we're spending money, right? I don't. We'll dive in. Bo cut his hair, and this is where we're at as Blue Jays fans. This is the biggest news that we have to talk about, is that Bo Bichette has gone short hair. And all I will say is thank God he's not clean shaven, because my friends, I think I would have lost my mind if he was short haired, clean shaven, and I would have been like, great. So now we suck and we're playing like the Yankees, right? So like now we just have a bunch of guys with zero edge to them, and we aren't even a good ball team. So we'll talk that. And again, we will go into chat here and get your Ross Atkinisms as the show goes on. Let's start with you, Jen. I'm going to read you something before we dive into the Vladdy extension, okay? This is from Corbin Burns, and this was in August before he hit free agency. This is from ESPN.com. I'm going to have to do a lot of research this offseason on farm systems. Young guys coming up, groups of core guys that are on a team, Burns said. Where does it look like teams are going to be competitive? Where are teams just looking to spend some money to make the fan base happy, whatever it might be? I think I can provide value in helping to elevate some young guys on a staff. It is a group of young pitchers where maybe they missed the postseason this year, but they have the pieces to do it now and for the long term. But you never know what's going to happen each year in baseball. Now, I read this to you, Jen, because obviously there's a lot of noise about the Blue Jays pursuing Corbin Burns. And what he's looking for in an organization feels like there aren't a lot of checks being marked in the Blue Jays' favor there. Would you agree with that? And where are you at on, before we get into extending Vladdy and stuff like that, where are you at on what feels like failure so far on the free agent market for this team?
Well, first of all, that quote, what Corbin Burns is saying is that he wants to know that the team he's signing with is going to be a contender for the duration of his signing. That's what he's saying, that they have young talent coming up to fill in holes and or can be traded for stars. That's what he's saying. And so if you take a look at the Blue Jays, we know that obviously, or at least in my opinion, the biggest failure of this front office has been the inability to develop a good farm system, especially since that's what they said they were going to do. So that definitely does sound like the Blue Jays would not be his number one choice. Unless they offer him way more money than any other team. I really don't see how they get that one done. So
now, what's interesting, and we don't know if these reports are true or not, Jen, but it is said that the Blue Jays technically do have the highest offer. Supposedly, they're around 250 million 7 years. And all of the holdup seems to be an attempt to get the San Francisco Giants, the other team that seems to be one of the top bidders for him, to up their bid. Same goes for the Red Sox, who all of a sudden there's reports coming out that they're in on it. Do you think that it is worth it for the Jays, being that maybe they are farm-wise not as well off as some of these other teams? And I'm not knocking the Blue Jays here on their farm. They have improved it over the last year. I mean, when your seller's at a deadline, that helps. To jump into chat here, Michael Borland says, to be fair to the Jays, they do have some young starter prospects. Tiedemann, Yasavage, and Manoah is still young.
I don't think we can invoke the name of Manoah anymore.
Yeah, it is a tough one. It is a tough one to throw in there, but I do get what he's saying. Do you think in the end money talks, I guess is the question.
Money always talks, absolutely. But you also don't want to do you want to be Mike Trout, essentially? Like, do you want to be on a team that isn't going to go anywhere? Right? I guess that's what you would have to decide. The fact that the Jays have the highest offer on the table, if that is true, if they have the highest offer on the table and he still hasn't signed because he's still waiting for somebody else to top that because he'd rather go elsewhere, that is in and of itself a statement about how he views the organization, right? And it really is hard to sell free agents on a team when your top player, your own homegrown talent, also will not sign on the dotted line.
Joel, how important is signing Vladdy long term? And I know Jen just brought up the whole Mike Trout of it all, which is basically a reference to the Los Angeles Angels and putting all of their eggs in one basket, a basket that just hasn't worked out health-wise for them, and a basket they've just not been able to add other baskets around. And my apologies, this basket analogy is getting way out of hand, but I will throw to you here.
Are you Ralph Atkins?
Do you think that a guy like Corbin Burnes would consider this franchise more if Vladdy was already locked up? And how important is it, do you think, to maybe overpay to just get it done? Like, if you got to go 550 with Vladdy right now just to say that we still have a young, controllable member of this core, is it worth it?
It's worth it. It's worth it because Atkins and Shapiro have yet to bring in any comparable talent over their tenure to Vladdy, which is still an Anthopoulos signing, which is shocking to me. Like, they're going to say he's not generational. Well, based off of your generation. So it's this situation where if you could sit there and be like, oh, we've created 4 Vladdys on our own and we can let him go because we know that we'll be able to create and build and draft top level talent.
The Houston Astros of it all, if you will.
Yes, but we are definitely and proven not to be that team. So it's this situation where, like Corbin Burnes, think about Milwaukee. Think about what he went through arbitration there, the seasons that he put up, winning a Cy Young, and then being third and saying, well, you didn't put up what we wanted you to put up, and being undercut by a team that should be going long-term with you, right? And then to come to Toronto and see that the 2 young stars here have fundamentally gotten the same treatment of being, well, not signing. These are the 2 talents that you're going to sign long-term. You're not going to get 21, 22-year-old talent that comes up and are game-breakingly good every single year. We found 2. we're not able to lock them up. So what does that say to Corbin Burns? Why is he hunting another team to come in and say, hey, because like Jen said, he wants to be competitive. He wants to be able to see a team that has the money to spend and the assets to move, and being able to build on every way that you need to.
Yeah. I mean, they've kind of put themselves in a tough situation because they are going to need to, I don't know. I hate the word and the term overpay, because I do think that Vladdy in the long run is worth it. However, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, where I really don't think there was much of a window for Vladdy to be extended over the last few years. I'm not saying there weren't some, but they were small windows where that could have got done. And I know a lot of people are hanging this front office up by their thumbs for this, and I think that there are far better reasons to do that with Shapiro and Atkins than the Vladdy extension. And my thinking there is, if you start to break down where it was at, right? 2021 career year. You're not signing him after 2021 unless you're giving him an exorbitant amount of money, and they probably should have. I mean, this is one thing back between 2021 and 2022, the offseason there. I remember Adam Mack said, we should just sign Vladdy 15 years, $500 million and just get it done. And everyone in the comments obviously tore him apart, right? And it's kind of funny that we're 3 years up now, and it's like, maybe that's not the craziest idea Mr. Mack has had. Maybe a $500 million, 15-year deal back in 2021 for Vladdy would have gone a long way here in solidifying the future of this Blue Jays team. Johnny, I'm going to throw to you here. Where are you at on Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? And it's interesting that there's two types of fans right now, and it feels like there's a type of fan that feels that Vladdy is going to get extended. It is going to happen. And then there's the fan base that is more resided to the fact that it would be crazy for him to not go to free agency. Do you think there is some middle ground here that can be had by this front office? And do you think a Vladdy extension can happen?
I don't know. I mean, that's a terrible answer, but I just like
No.
I it's such a complicated situation because you could sign him, but then like you've invested all this money, and what else are you going to do? It feels like the Jays cannot possibly solve their issues with a move right now. They've got to play chess, and they've got to do 7 moves, and the only way I see through it to be competitive is with money. They got to spend. And it could hurt bad to the pocketbook for a short amount of time, but they need they need to give Vladdy a really healthy paycheck. Then they need to go out and get 2 other big ass bats. And I don't think they need a Corbin Burns, but I do think another pitcher. Like even if it's a 5th starter like Jose Quintana type, that's fine. I think they have a very good staff right now, and they just need another one. They just need insurance, basically. Someone who isn't going to suck and is just going to give them innings. But with the Vlad thing, like I don't know. I wouldn't want to be Ross Atkins right now, and there's so many reasons why. But I wouldn't want to have put myself in the position that he has put himself into, because it ain't pretty. Like, how is he going to do it? I don't know how he's going to save his job other than to get Rogers to open the pocketbook and go crazy. And I would love to see Vladdy signed, and I think there is a route there because he does want to be there. But I still think it's going to cost a lot. You know, he may want to be here, but it's going to cost. So who knows?
It absolutely is. Jen, I would love to hear your opinion on some of the stuff going on in chat right now. Mark Drabert says, if they are serious about making the playoffs, they need 2 power bats or a starter and a closer. And I would say I agree with all of that. Maybe not 2 power bats, but when you say we need one of Teoscar Hernandez or Anthony Santander, I mean, the truth, would you say, lies a little bit in they probably need them both?
Both would be phenomenal. I mean, have you looked at the rest of the lineup? Right? Um, they need to score runs. I don't know if they've learned that lesson over the past 2 seasons, right? We all I mean, it's plain as day to anybody who's watched this team for the past 2 years that they need to score more runs. And so I don't I can't imagine that that fact is lost on the front office, and yet here they are signing more defense, right? So I'm not really I just don't know where the disconnect is, or if they just it isn't a disconnect if there's still moves to be made here. I would say, just backtracking a tiny bit,
Hmm.
just tossing a few things out there. I would say that there is a third type of Vladdy fan out there right now, and it's a very, very small minority, but one that is saying that if there is no chance that they can sign Vlad, then they've got to trade him and start the rebuild.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. I honestly agree with that. After watching the difficult decisions that Dana Brown has made as the general manager of the Houston Astros over the last couple of years, and where they've invested their money and how they've gone about their business, these are decisions that are not easy to make for a general manager, and obviously get a lot of pushback from the fan base. However, I do think it's probably the responsible way to run a team, right? If you cannot sign your players that are big assets in the moment, then maybe you need to get what you can for them rather than leaving the cupboard completely bare in the future here. I'm going to go to chat real quick. Deb is chiming in here, says, I think Rogers could throw a lot of money at the team and still be profitable. Big names especially will draw eyeballs, merch sales, and bums in seats. Of course, there's marketing to think of as well, too. So when you look at the landscape here, and Joel, this was an interesting thing that was brought up. Strange hot stove sequence. Since Max Fried and Nathan Eovaldi agreed to new deals last Tuesday, we've seen 7 major trades involving 13 different teams and 29 players, but 0 other prominent signings. So I guess my question to you, Joel, is there a way that this front office can go about their business to fill some of these holes that they have through the trade market? Now, I will say they obviously went out and got Andre Jimenez. And there's been a lot of discourse about this signing. But personally, and the more I think about it, the more I like this signing. What I don't like about it is the order in which it came. And I know that sometimes you gotta jump the gun on some of the order stuff, but it does feel like this front office loves to be the fucking smartest guys in the room and to do things a little untraditionally and be a little savvy. And listen, I know there's a lot of people who feel the Jimenez deal might wind up coming and biting them in the ass. I'm not one of those guys. I actually do think that the money they're spending on this guy and the war they're going to get out of him, and I honestly don't think as bad is going to be near as bad as 2024. I don't think we can expect 2022 Andre Jimenez. All of this to say, Joel, that this front office, like, they duck when they should jump, it feels like sometimes. And they're just a tad too smart in that we all can see they need a power bat and yet refuse to kind of go out and do it. So is there a way on the trade market where they can go out and fill some of these holes? Or can we expect Luis Arraez here and just still, which I'd be all for, by the way, but still no extra power?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'd rather them have targeted Luis Arraez. I think when you say that they're trying to be the smartest guys in the room or in baseball, it's just funny because they win the Andres Jimenez trade, and it's like, haha, we won the race to Andres Jimenez, and the rest of the league was like, there was no race. You're the only one in this race. You're the only ones who are contacting Cleveland to be like, hey, do you want to dump a lot of salary on us? Like, nobody else was in this race. You want to race by yourself. So it's this like, and it's the order, like you said, it's the order. if you look at Houston, Houston could be in a situation where Kyle Tucker and Bregman are out the door off of a trade and off of not signing him. The way that they move Tucker, get Paredes back, and now could go after a Teo or a Santander, and that situation is, oh, you were going to pay Tucker 450 million, you're going to pay him 400 million, you're going to pay Bregman 200 million. Now you've, through a trade, got your third baseman back who can slug ballpark, and then you go get $100 million, $80 million corner outfield, and all of a sudden, two big pieces that would devastate any other team to lose. Oh, Houston can just magically patch that hole and save money doing so. And it's that situation where going after Jimenez, that's another 9-hole hitter. That's another guy that's like, he had one season where he hit. The rest of the time, he's not hitting against lefties. Don't sit there and hope that Andres Jimenez is going to change the game with his bat. And we've got so many players on the team that aren't there to change the game with their bat, you know, and the hunt for just the fact that the top 5 lineup hitters were on this team. We had a plethora of them. We had excess. And now that we're sitting here going, God, we need one. We definitely need 2. Hell, we might need 3. You know, it's to be there, but just be so close to a time where we had a lot of money and we had the bats in-house, and realizing that they were here. And those are the guys that we needed to hold on to because they were here. And now to lose them and be like, well, we're not. And the fact that it really seems that some situations are closed off because of personal relationships. It's like, you think about who Ross Atkins and Shapiro deal with. Does it feel like they trade with all of Major League Baseball? Or does it sometimes feel like they're only dealing with about 6 teams? Like, they'll deal with the Mets, they'll deal with Cleveland. Like, it doesn't feel like all of Major League Baseball is clamoring to deal with the Toronto Blue Jays.
I agree with that, Joel. And I think that, so the fan base, I think it's pretty obvious. We just do not have faith in this front office to do the right thing anymore. And I know that a lot of folks who are Blue Jays fans get frustrated with the negativity. And I hope that everyone understands that this isn't frustration with the players and the team. This is frustration with the holes that we've been seeing for years and the front office's lack of ability to fill it. I'm going to go to chat here real quick. Andrew McLeod says, I've been hearing for 9 years how smart they are. Results yet? Question mark. And I mean, this is something that has rubbed the fan base wrong right from the inception of this front office, right? We all remember 2017 after Anthopoulos had moved on and started consulting with the Dodgers, right? And we were running back this older team, had injuries, and 2017 was just fell flat on their face. And then they had to start the rebuild. And Shapiro said that year, right? Waves of talents are coming. And one of his biggest problems with Anthopoulos was that he left the cupboard bare. And here we are again. The cupboard is bare. Our best core players are on walk years and are going to be very difficult to sign. And you look at what the Astros just did with Kyle Tucker, and you're kind of like, well, maybe this is what should happen. But then in the same breath there, and where is it in chat? Please imagine what you could get for a Vlad in a trade. Then imagine what Ross Atkins would get for Vlad in a trade, which again is the lack of faith this front office has. The lack of faith that this fan base has in the front office. Johnny, where are you at personally on your faith in Ross Atkins? Do you think we are so far past giving him the benefit of the doubt? Or do you think that you look at this offseason and realize it's an unfinished picture and we should at least see what that picture looks like?
I mean, yes to the last thing you said. We should wait to see what it looks like before judging it. But we can also, I mean, I wrote this down today to say on the show here, but like all we have right now is hope Like the fans that I see being positive, they're expressing hope, and they're like, oh, well, if Bo turns it around this year, and if that, and all, like, and Kevin Gosman gets improves a bit, like comes back to normal, if Bassett has a good season, if Barrios logs inning, and it's all these if, and it's all dependent on progression, not anything getting worse. It's completely unrealistic. Uh, and all we have is that hope of a bunch of players improving that, half of them are going to get worse. That's just basic odds. And then the other thing we have is faith in this front office. But then and that's the stuff about the future. But if you look into the past, what do we have? We have this front office just making terrible decisions since the winter of 2021. Like, just over and over, and no real exciting things, like no blockbusters, nothing really thrilling. Like, signing Kevin Gosman was good, but to me, that's not a blockbuster move. Neither's signing Bassett. Those are just nice little savvy moves, but they haven't done anything to put this team over the edge. And last offseason was just disgusting. It was like a freaking punt. It was like,
Yeah.
we give up. The market's bad. We're just not going to take anybody, even though there were all these deals to be had last year. Loads of deals. And you'd think,
especially compared to free agency right now. Yeah.
And you'd think it would be like right in the Atkins wheelhouse of like, I don't want to spend a lot of money, but I want to make a smart signing that's like value. And it's like, those deals were made left and right last offseason, but not by the Jays. Like there were so many discount deals to be had out there, like freaking Blake Snell on next to nothing. I mean, he had a terrible start to the season, but he ended it crazy strong. And it's like, why didn't you try that out? Like, it made no sense to me then, and I don't know. I have zero faith in this front office at this point. Just not.
Jump in here.
I think we can question how they're valuing players. I think that's part of the problem.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, somebody mentioned earlier about convincing ownership to give them the money. I don't know that that's the problem so much as it is how the front office is valuing players, and they will not move off of that valuation. Now, that can be good business practice, right? In the sense that, you don't get into, a ton of really terrible deals. But when you are trying to put not competitive, let me backtrack. When you're trying to put a winning team on the field, and you're seeing what players are being signed for, at some point, you do have to alter the way you are valuing players to match the market. And that's not what they don't seem to be doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, going to chat here, there's some good points being made. Marco G says, how many players just don't want to come north of the border? And I don't think that that's quite the issue that's being made of it right now. And I do think it's a problem right now. In this moment, players don't want to come north. But there was a moment in 2021 when this was a very, very good team, and there was some heat in Toronto, and I think it wasn't near the roadblock that it is now. Joe, go ahead, Jen.
I did see a TikTok video, and I don't know where they got their information from, but it was the top 5 MLB road cities to visit, right? And so Toronto was number 3, I believe. So I don't know that players don't want to live north of the border. I get that, the travel across the border and all that jazz might be.
And of course, some of them don't. Of course.
Yeah, a bit of an irritant, but you're being paid in American dollars. You're only being taxed at Ontario rates for the games you play in Ontario. I don't know that it's as big of a deal as people make it out to be. Now, if you're comparing Toronto to LA, who wouldn't want to live in California, right? So, I don't know. Every player who plays here seems to really like the city. It's not, I don't think it's the city itself that is an issue necessarily.
Yeah.
I agree with Jen.
Honestly,
the city is it's a very culturally, it's a beautiful city. There's Toronto's a great city to go to. Just remove your personal bias of where you live in the country, but it is. It's a wonderful city to go to. People love it. It's great. It's a great situation when you come and you turn that American dollar into $1.40 Canadian, and you sit there and you go, "What? I got this much more in my wallet. My wallet is this much thicker when I come here." And it is a situation where, as much as hell we give Anthopoulos, and this was just as much free agency as it was trades, but that flow of talent did not seem to be closed just one GM before. You were seeing in free agency, in the offseason and at the trade deadline, massive stars coming to Toronto. And that was for a team that wasn't built for a 5-year run. That was a team that was suddenly thrown into competitiveness. So for the fact that you were in this situation where you had Bo and Vladdy at their low points financially for what you have to pay them, and there was no bolstering offensively and building there for a winner. What is it when you bring them back and you're paying Bo, hypothetically, magically, the stars align and we bring Bo and Vladdy back, and we're paying Vladdy $40 million a year and Bo $30, and $70 million is now being spent to them. Do we trust the team's ability to allocate the other money around that money being spent to make a winner? Because they couldn't do it when those guys were only making $7-10 million combined.
So going to chat here, Real Justice says, doesn't matter what city you play in, you're only there in the city 3 months of the year. I do agree a little bit with that. I will say this, if you are paid well, if you are on a winning team and you like the players you're playing with, you know what? It doesn't really matter where the fuck you are. And I truly do believe most ball players feel that way. I could be wrong. It's not like I've done a poll or anything like that. I don't think getting players north of the border is the issue. I think the issue is I don't know how well viewed this front office is around the league. I don't know. My guess is that there are players out there who don't like how things have gone down. And maybe there isn't you call your buddy Jordan Romano up and be like, hey, how was your time in Toronto? Maybe there's a little bitterness there,
Well, don't you wonder what some of that chatter is? We keep seeing all these photos of Vlad and Teo, for instance, working out together. I doubt I just don't believe it's Vlad saying, hey, come back. I believe it's more the other way.
I know, and that really worries me too. It's like, even when you found out that Vladdy wasn't brought into the negotiations with Juan Soto, and honestly, the way the front office has just thrown massive amounts of money at the biggest stars in free agency the last 2 years and haven't been able to get a deal done with him, I wouldn't want Vladdy in the room either while you're like, hey, $700 million, Mr. Soto. But I also wouldn't want him in the room in case he's like, I'm going to go to the Mets. Guess who has a hole at first base there, Mr. Guerrero? Just wait it out a year. You go to free agency, you get yours, and you're going to be a rich New York Met too. Johnny?
Yeah, I imagine
jump in here.
I imagine the players see Ross Atkins the way we see him, which is a fake who's just full of it. I listen to that man speak, and I'm like, I don't trust you at all. You're a sleaze. you're a numbers sleaze, but he just comes off as so disingenuous. And it's just like how he sounds like a politician, and it's like I can't believe anything you say, and most of the time what he's saying doesn't have any meaning. It's just empty words, the stuff he says to dance around anything real. And like, if I was a player, players are human beings, they can read people, and if I was under him as a player, I'd be like, screw this guy. Like,
I would get tired of the Atkinisms as well, for sure. So this is Long Toss. It's our special Christmas edition. Thank you so much to everyone who's following along on YouTube right now. We are pushing 100 watching right now. Please hit that like button if you have not. It definitely helps get this out there and get it seen. If you are in chat, we're trying to take as many of your questions, comments as we can. So keep them coming. We've got the one and only Baseball Jen with us. We've got Hey Commie, Joel LaFlamme, and our producer extraordinaire, Johnny Eaton. I'm Scott Belford. Again, thanks so much for joining us, folks. We're going to take a quick little left turn here and talk some Oakland Athletics. Now, this does tie into the Blue Jays a little in that right now, Blue Jays fans, the news of the off season is that Bo Bichette now has short hair to match his good buddy Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And in the meantime, the Oakland A's, well, formerly the baseball team formerly known as the Oakland A's, is out there signing pitchers. Jen, I'm really curious on your view on what's going on in Oakland. They just made a pretty major trade with the Tampa Bay Rays to go out and get Jeffrey Springs and now have a legitimate, I don't know if I would say Springs is an ace, but he is a 1A number or a number 2 guy, I think, in most rotations. They went out and spent some big time money on Severino and a team that maybe was framed coming into this offseason as maybe they'll lose Brent Rooker, maybe they'll trade Mason Miller, maybe they'll strip down, and that has not been the case. What's your view on the A's right now?
How screwed over would you feel if you were an A's fan? And how is this being allowed to happen? I just want to know how the franchise got to this point without, and it be allowed to get to this point, right? I really don't know what they're doing, to be completely honest. I don't know. There, whatever financial is in it for them, but it's a really bad look, and it's just a stain on baseball.
It really does feel like a stain on baseball, and I know one of the biggest thorns in people's craw of things being even and the revenue sharing that's going on and how some teams just don't have motivation to spend. So I read that the Oakland Athletics need to hit $110 million in their payroll this year for them to continue to get the revenue sharing percentage that they've been getting, which is the highest in baseball. So they need to spend some money, and I think that that's what's going on. Joel, I'll throw to you here. How do you feel about the circumventing of rules like this? It makes it feels like this league isn't prioritizing competitiveness, and it's frustrating as a fan. Do you feel that a little bit when you watch teams like the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Oakland Athletics and how they operate?
There's so many different levels of this onion to peel back. The game, like Major League Baseball, is the sport that's supposed to feel the most like society, right? There's no salary cap, and you got the big money guys, and that's society, right? You got to deal with the guys who have the money. They're going to walk all over you, and so just the elements of this thing, and like what I really find disgusting is stuff where you get like senior college players who get absolutely shafted on their draft signings because they've got nowhere to go. So teams like Pittsburgh and teams, Kansas City will go after seniors who should be slotted at getting, $1 million, $1.5 million for their draft slots. They're really talented players. They showcase really, really well in their final years of collegiate ball, but they've got nowhere to go. And they know if they're not signed here, they've got no real other option, and they're going to have to go and prove themselves in Japan. So they get it's those types of practices. It's what minor league players get paid. It's like, it's this system of every star that you can create, every player that you can build on and make a star out of is what the game is built off of. So if you're put in situations where your youth are calling it quits at 19, 20 because the finances are just ridiculous for them, it makes no sense for them to keep playing the game. But their development is still 4 years away. They're still 4 years away from finding that coach who really turns them into something special. And they don't get there now because, well, the game is just excluding that possibility. So it's the financing and the money aspect of this game. It really does get to you. And I think something that consistently gets thrown around in this league is a salary floor and how that has to work. But like, you have to think about the CBA and how signing players and all of that stuff has just been so warped with deferred contracts now, and the way that everything can be thrown together for baseball's always been trying to find the loophole, trying to find the advantage, trying to find that sneaky way to be better. But nothing could be more true than the way that they approach the financing. And because of that constant pursuit of the best possible contract, the most possible money, that gets to the point where it's like we don't sit there and really worry about the record numbers as much as we worry about the record contracts. You know, the famous statistical numbers that used to flood our brains in the game are now being replaced with 765, you know, meaning the money is the number that we're all starting to sit there and remember. And it's just gotten to that case with the game.
So going to chat here, this is a really interesting talking point here, and I'm going to go around the horn and get all three of your opinion on this because I think that there's a real divide in how baseball fans view this. So this is a comment from Scott Farr, and he says, the only message the front office... Oh, of course, now it scrolls up. There we are. The only message this front office will understand is an empty ballpark, exclamation mark. But the casuals keep going, and they will keep being themselves. So my opinion is maybe people won't like this. I hate so much that I'm expected to not go see my favorite sport because I got to punish Mark Shapiro. I fucking hate that it is on me, the fan, to set Mark Shapiro straight. Johnny, what is your opinion on this? Because Scott's not wrong, right? Empty stadiums send a message. How much of that is on baseball fans to basically deny themselves what they love to show a front office what's what?
It's not on them at all because of exactly what he said. The casuals will come no matter what. Especially in Toronto, where they just set up a whole bunch of bars and like little video games where kids can play the game instead of watching it. You know, like you can boycott if you want. You'll just be an empty seat that'll be replaced with somebody else. Like there's not that the stadium will not be empty. It's just not going to happen right now. I wanted to say about John Fisher that I think my theory about him is that he watched Major League one too many times. And he got some ideas in his head.
Right.
He's like, if I make this team suck enough, I could move them to where I want to move them to. It is the Major League plot, and he did it. There was no happy ending for them. They didn't have Willie Mays Hayes to steal
free
home.
access to the Boca Raton Country Club.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts on that.
Jen, very curious your thought on Scott Farr's comment. And before I get to what you're saying, Mantis Toboggan, doctor, goes, the casuals will not keep going when it's not cool to go there anymore. It was cool to go there because of the young core and the renovations, which will no longer be the case. Jen, the casuals will eventually stop coming if this team continues to suck. Do you agree?
In this economy? Yeah. I mean, so I'm not a casual fan. I'm somebody who has gone to a lot of games every single year, you know, for as long as I can remember, right? Good years, bad years. I went to 2 games last year. That's the fewest number of games I've been to in probably like for as long as I can remember. You know,
and one of those we went because we were given tickets by the lovely Biche.
I was given tickets to both. I did not pay. I personally did not pay for either ticket that I used. But between either the, you know, the cost of the GO train ride and or the cost of parking, depending on how you're getting downtown, you know, the cost of food. I bring my own food because I'm a cheap bitch. And they are not getting my hot dog money. But you know, like, but I'm being really, really serious. Like I am as like frugal about going to a game as I possibly can be. I don't drink at the game. And it was still,
so those $15 beers aren't reeling you in?
No, not at all. It's still expensive enough to get to the game, to then sit there and watch a poor product on the field. Right. So if you're a young casual fan and your whole goal is to just really go to a bar and hang out with friends and you've got baseball going on in the background, you can do that at a sports bar, right? Now, to your point about how you, the fan, should not have to give up going to the game that you love in order to punish the front office. What I will say that I learned this past year is that it's a lot of fun to just stay home and watch a game. I can eat what I want. I can go to bed when I want. There's no downtown traffic. There's no this or that. And that might be what people end up doing, because the result is the same whether you're in the stadium or you're at home. That's all that there is to it. So I don't know. I think at some point that they will stop coming.
Yeah, Joel, Toronto is a good baseball market, but it needs to be a good team to continue to fill the stadium like we've seen the last couple of years. Do you agree with that? And what is your thought on Scott Farr's comment of it's on us, we should be boycotting this and forcing this front office? What is your opinion?
I think it's kind of already started. Last year, you're at the peak of your renovations, right? This is the year that, like, here we are, come out to our stadium, and the Blue Jays were not competitive, and the numbers were on the decrease for attendance. It's like it wasn't a staggering amount, but you now come into a season where your expectations are not to be competitive, right? Like, they'll say that we are. We'll put on the facade that, oh yes, we're out there to win the division, but the fans have been fed so much lip service that they know the truth. And like Jen said, you go to sports bar to watch this team, and that's kind of the interest that the stadium is cultivating amongst its fan base, is that baseball, it's going on, it's happening. Come to the baseball game, there's a game going on, but look at all this other stuff. And the fact that they try to sell you on the bells and whistles, right? When we showed, I'm from Alberta, okay? When I went to watch the Blue Jays play, the competitive Blue Jays play, I can't say this for everybody, but the stadium experience is greatly improved by a winning ball club. The amount of joy that you experience from winning and seeing your team succeed is much better than a seat that's slightly tilted or it has a cup holder. I don't care if I have to put my cup on the ground. If my team is winning, I'll knock over a few beers in the process.
The second arcade isn't moving the needle for you with a losing team.
It's like, it's what you have a team that is there 81 times a year. And seeing them succeed and seeing them win, that just comes far before moving the outfield and trying to make it more of a fan experience. But you took wins away, you took the excitement away. The bells and whistles were louder, but the actual thing that you went to see there, the prime attraction, isn't the prime attraction. And the fact that the exterior experience, everything outside of the lines got better. Everything inside the lines got worse.
Now, this is all pre-renovation, okay? And I went to a bunch of games in 2014. I went usually by myself because I actually like to sit and watch baseball, right? I'm not there to socialize. And I would buy cheap 500 level tickets, and I would go sit behind home plate. And the ushers knew that wasn't where my seat was. Nobody cared because there was nobody in the stadium, right?
Yeah.
I was not in anybody's way. So I did this for probably, I don't know how many games. And I continue to do it into the first half of 2015, right? Buy my cheap ticket, go sit behind home plate, and, watch myself a baseball game. And then, of course, we all know what happened at the trade deadline in 2015. And all of a sudden, you could not do that anymore. You could not buy a 500 level ticket and sit down in the 100s because every single seat was sold, and you were crammed in there with a bunch of screaming fans who were super excited. And let me tell you, that is a much better way to watch a ball game.
Agreed 100%. And to add on to what both you, Joel, and you, Jen, just said, we're going to go to chat here. Mantis Toboggan says, Oakland had people show up when they were winning, and that place is a dump. Great point. 20 Legend says, but Kami, they've got shuffleboard now.
revert my
And then,
entire you got me on shuffleboard.
yeah, that's right. And then going to Scott Carter, he says the front office would not see the fans not as a reflect on the team. They will just say it is a bad sports city, which, whether they would or not, goes to show you where this fan base is with their trust and their faith in this front office, which has been eroded to almost nothing. Now, we're gonna go in a slightly different direction here because I do want to, and Johnny, I'll throw to you in a second, but Jen, I'm gonna start with you on this. I think it's pretty safe to say, and everyone in chat seems to feel the same way, or are in a variance of this opinion, which is Atkins' back is against the wall. Or, fuck, it sure better be. And I'm a little surprised that with his back against the wall, he hasn't made more risky moves, and I'm well aware that we might see some real crazy stuff go on before this baseball season opens. I'm not saying they might not take some real stabs here you wouldn't see normally, but a front office that is normally very calculated and very adverse to risk, we've seen them kind of stick with their mantra. Has that surprised you a little, Jen? And do you think we could see this front office maybe take some swings we wouldn't normally see? Because for two guys that I think, like Shapiro's contract is up at the end of the year, like they're both probably out of here if this team stinks. Where are these big swings?
So I guess my question or my comment would be, if they were going to, wouldn't they have by now? Like, yes, they did make an offer to Soto. But like I said, the front office gave them the go ahead to spend more money or to offer Soto more money, and they still did not. They kept their valuation. So they did not take that big swing when it was presented to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how I'm looking at this. If that offer to Vladdy, I know it was prior to the Soto signing, but if that was their offer to Vladdy, I wouldn't call that a big swing.
No, I
Right?
agree with that. I agree with that, Jen.
So I really don't know. And just to backtrack slightly, back to the comments about less attendance and whatnot. My only concern with that is fans stop going, is the team stop spending.
Yeah.
And right now they do have, a top 8 payroll, right? Like they are spending money, and I don't know that fans not going would then cause Ross Atkins to take that big swing. I think quite the opposite. I think that just means it's the season is a wash, and maybe some of that spending actually dries up. They've got to know though that they're fighting for their life, right?
You would think, going to chat here, Mark Drabert says that's how stubborn they are. Even with their jobs on the line, they won't overpay for a star. RC Cyber Warrior says this front office needs to move to a different sport since their baseball instincts are terrible, looking at the steady decline in our team's performance. And, Johnny, I'll throw to you here. I'm curious your thought on if we could see a big swing. Like, could we see them go out and maybe surprise us and maybe make a trade for a Luis Arise or a Luis Robert Jr. And where are you at when you think about this season and the trade deadline and what would need to be done if what they do this offseason is a failure? How can we expect Ross Atkins to kick off a rebuild mid-season if he still has the job? So where are you at on just everything we've kind of gone over here, and what do you think Rogers' next step is if they fail this, they don't take a big swing and they fail this offseason?
Yeah. So my one sort of silver lining mental approach to what's happened so far this offseason, which is very little, is that the Jimenez and Sandlin trade did something for the team that I kind of like. I really I'm old school in the sense of like the strong up the middle with your defense. And right now, they inarguably have the best up the middle defense, and it's not even close. The catcher, shortstop, center fielder, that is as elite a trio as you get. You got a guy who's been robbed of a gold glove, should have gotten one. A guy who has platinum gloves. The two other guys have the highest defensive run saves at, in the infield and the outfield. So that's amazing. And to me, like, if I could have any faith, it's that they've set this building block. But the issue is, I don't mind that Jimenez can't hit. I don't mind that Varsho can't hit. I don't mind that Kirk may or may not be able to hit. Those are great defensive players, and if they're hitting 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that area, great. I am perfectly happy with those guys being where they are. The thing is, you gotta put just bombers at every other position. Springer's still a problem. If they could pull a trade off to just get him out, like retain the money, just get him out, get whatever you can for him, and go get like. It doesn't have to be superstars. I'm a big fan of maybe signing Paul Goldschmidt, the Christian Walker, like those guys. Like give me a tall left-handed first baseman who can pop you 20, hit 270. That's fine. Get an outfielder who can bop them. Get me an outfielder who's going to hit me between 30 and 50 home runs. There are not a lot out there, obviously, but like. There's Teo and Santander, and that's about it. But you have to sign them. Get another outfielder who can be decent. and I'm kind of the I'm on the move Vlad to third train. Move him to third. I don't care if his defense isn't great. He's got a hell of an arm. If you move Jimenez over to shortstop, who cares that Vlad's at third?
Yeah,
that guy's going to cover the whole left side of the infield. Then go get yourself like the Goldschmidt or and then you've got a lineup, and you've got a longer lineup, and you've got amazing defense up the middle. And that's that's how I can imagine they can do it. But again, like I said earlier, you got to spend. They have to. There's no way around this. And if they don't, I can't imagine what their psychology is right now. Because if they're like, we're going to stick to our plan as we've assessed our evaluations and blah, 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 like you guys are screwed. You're just, it's like you're stubbornly giving up, which is the weirdest thing to do. it's like the kid in high school who's like constantly failing, and they're just like, I'm never going to pass because I'm stupid. And you're like, you're not stupid. You're just not putting the effort in. And that's how I feel like about our front office. It's like, maybe they are stupid.
You made some really interesting, You threw some really interesting ideas out there, and I'd love to hear what you think of some of this, Joel, because that's not such a bad idea. And if Bichette is on his way out, and there's no way that we can re-sign him, where would you be at, Joel, on just doing a switch, forcing Bo to play second, putting your best middle infield defensively at short, moving Vladdy to third, and even though Vladdy is going to make some mistakes at the hot corner, maybe you can minimize that a little in having one of the best defensive shortstops in the game playing that position, and then maybe bringing in a Christian Walker or something like that to play first base. Like, is there a way in that beautiful baseball mind of yours, Joel, where you can start moving guys around a little bit and maybe get more production out of this lineup with some savvy signings?
Yeah, well, Springer and the decline of Springer and the money we spend on Springer, it's a Vernon Wells situation, right? Where you get anything for it, and that would be a miracle. It'd be an absolute miracle. The Vladdy situation at third base, that like obviously I was never off the idea of moving him off third. Okay, since he was 20, he's a 20-year-old third baseman. Let him stink it up for 3 years. Let him stink it up and figure out that position, because when you get to the point where you're Rafael Devers and you're just slightly below average defensively at third base, but you're a 3, 4, 5 hole hitter hitting in third base, it's those bonuses that you get in your lineup when all of a sudden your 3 guy is a third base is synonymous with power. Just for my day and age, it was synonymous with put a big guy there who doesn't have the middle infield feet. He's got a cannon. Use the cannon. Put him in front of the ball. Put a big body there. Let him block some stuff and throw people out. Okay, that's my mentality of what a third baseman was, at least when I was growing up watching third base, and that's very much a position that Vladdy should have had the time to sit there and do. And to do it now, it's tough. But I said this once in a TikTok video that Vladdy, if he can play below average defense for like 4 months, but figure it out in the last 2 and just say, hey, there is potential at me playing this third base, the value in him, whether it's on the trade market or as a free agent next year, it's going to skyrocket for him just to say, hey, I could potentially play league average third base by the time I'm 28 and, put up 35, 115 RBIs. Guys like Jock Peterson are still out there, I think. And like, that would be an interesting addition. That's a lefty who can play a little bit of outfield, play first base, slug you 25 bombs. So
speaking of Major League, Joel, that comment literally makes me think of when they're like, I wish we'd had Roger Dorn 2 years ago. And they're like, we did. And they're like, 4 years ago then.
It's kind of that. Yeah, it's very much that situation. A lot of Major League going on. You realize that movie was so ahead of its time with all their thought processes. But yeah, it's lineup and the fact that Springer, you want him to be a 1. Are we still going into this season with the expectation that George Springer is a leadoff hitter? Do they still believe that?
It's an unserious team if they do. I'm on the fence that this is a serious team anyways. But if George Springer starts this year at leadoff, we're fucked. Pardon the language, but there's no other way of putting it. This is a 35-year-old aging guy who has declined offensively consistently over the last 3 years, and we expect to find lightning in a bottle with this guy. Hit him 7th.
We got a lot of 7-hole hitters is the problem though, and the last the final thing that I want.
You can't put everyone in the 7-hole, Scott.
If you wanted the desperate attack on the team had opportunities to double down on identity, whether it was 2021 and you're doubling down on offense and you're going the all offensive route, or the fact that they just stripped that down and said pitching and defense. Last year, they still had the opportunity to say more pitching, Blake Snell, more pitching, Max Fried, right? The one thing, if we've been able to develop one thing on this team, it's lefty pitchers. Lefty pitchers have come on this team, and it's the one point where a lefty comes in, they're here, and they leave up here. Pete Walker can finesse a left-handed pitcher. So when I sit out there and I look at Snell and what he was picked up for, and the fact that might have been a way to push over this pitching staff to being, hey, we're going to double down on this and really go for pitching. And this year, to find out that we didn't even make an offer to Max Fried is another situation. It's like, well, if
what are we doing?
Why aren't we in on these conversations? Right? It just shocks me that we're not in on we should be in on every goddamn free agent conversation of any value.
Not making an offer to Max Fried is a very unserious thing to do.
Yeah. I agree 100%, Jen. And this is really interesting. I'm going to throw to you here, Johnny, but I'm going to start with you, Jen, because Dalchimeris, so friend of the show, Dalchi, he pipes in here. And it's funny that he's bringing this up because my first thought when I saw that the Guardians got Horowitz and then flipped him instantly for 3 pitching prospects from the Pirates, I was like, ooh, if any of these pitching prospects work out, Jays fans will never live it down. So this is from Dalchimeris. He says, did you guys see that Luis Ortiz guy Cleveland got from the Pirates for Horowitz? He has a 3 wins above replacement starting pitcher who costs $800,000 in 2025 and 2026. Why couldn't the Blue Jays have traded Horowitz for him? And
because
I don't know the actual answer here. My guess is they didn't want to. Jen, what is your thoughts on the Guardians flipping Horowitz so quickly? And where are you at on Spencer Horowitz's value? Because I was honestly a little surprised that he moved the needle quite as much as he did. And I'm not saying that Andre Jimenez wasn't also a salary dump. There was obviously that involved in it. But even the pitcher they got, Nick Sandlin, who, sidearm guy, weird arm slot, he's going to be like an Adam Simber and probably look really good for a year or two before everyone in the division and AL kind of figure him out. But what do you think on Spencer Horowitz's value? Do you think that the Blue Jays actually did develop a talent there?
I mean, it certainly seems that way. He was
Right?
obviously right. So, I would assume, Cleveland kind of had that deal in their back pocket going on to get those prospects, and they just needed the piece to do it, right? Just one of those little, those little Moneyball, right? I thought of Moneyball, that whole phone series. I think that's kind of what was going on here. And I mean, good for them. Did Toronto do their due diligence and see, who else out there would take Horowitz and what they could get for him? I have no idea.
Or did Cleveland go, you know what? We'll take Horowitz. Here you go.
Yeah, like I have absolutely no idea how that went down, because I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
No.
Like that was not a move anybody could have predicted. So I would be interested in how that actually happened. But yeah, sorry. Clearly, Horowitz has value. And did the Jays value him lower than the rest of the league? Or were they just so concerned, to Johnny's point, about getting stronger up the middle, that they were okay sacrificing some offense because they believe they will get that offense from somewhere else? I don't know, because there doesn't seem to be a direction.
Mm-hmm. No, and it is frustrating to see the lack of direction with this team. This is our Christmas special, holiday special long toss, folks. Thank you so much to the entire grounds crew has been following along here. Where are we at? Let's take a look at where we're at. We're at 103 watching right now. So a big thank you to all of you who are following along. It would mean so much if you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are not. Every little bit obviously helps. So thrilled to have with us our panel today, producer extraordinaire Johnny Eaton, our two mainstays on long toss over the years, Baseball Jen and Joel Aflame Kami. Folks, really curious on what we have for our topics. So we do this every long toss where we go around the horn with all of our panelists and we get a topic. And so we are going to do that really quickly here. But before I do want to toss to you, Johnny, I'm curious your thoughts on the Spencer Horowitz move, how much value he had, and if you were a little surprised by that. And then on the other side, I'm curious your thoughts on Will Wagner, a guy who, was very comparable in the way that his makeup was with Horowitz, in that doubles hitter, good on base percentage, a real contact guy, probably a dude who could hit 300, decent at second base, but not the greatest defender. So thoughts on Horowitz leaving, and where do you think Will Wagner fits into this team?
I was pretty surprised by both parts of that trade. I was surprised that when the deal was made, and I was like, oh, Horowitz out and a minor leaguer, like who's coming back? And I was like, oh, a high glove, like shortstop and a pretty serviceable bullpen piece. And I thought that was a pretty good return for a guy who really proved himself for all of like 2/3 of a major league season. To me, that was impressive. And then, then my brain immediately went to, why'd they get a shortstop? Like, he's a second baseman, but really Jimenez is a shortstop. And I'm like, they're already planning for Bo's departure. That's what it seemed like to me. It's like they didn't get this guy to play second base. I don't believe it for a second. And then my wheels started spinning of like, is Bo going now? Is he going trade? Like when's he going? Because it seems like they were planning on that. And then my brain got to like, San Diego needs a shortstop, and they have Luis Arraez, and both of them are on
Mm-hmm.
1 year left on their deals. Could there be a swap going on there? And then like I was thinking about other things, other players San Diego had, and like what like could there be a big deal coming? Hasn't happened, but that's like in the world of faith that I've been talking about. It's like, well, if Ross Atkins was impressive, I could see that kind of deal happening where Bo
Mm-hmm.
goes to San Diego and Arise, and probably more than that comes back because Bo's worth a bit more than Arise, just in valuations and stuff.
Joel.
And then when the Horowitz thing flipped to Pittsburgh, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, then I was impressed with Cleveland because I was like, whoa, you guys were playing chess. You just like, that was a move. It's like you took on Horowitz, but you achieved your goal of getting rid of some salary and stuff like that. And you took on this guy and you flipped him for pitching, one of whom's serviceable and the other two could be something. And I was like, that was a slick bit of business by the
Yeah, it
Guardians.
kind of was. It kind of was.
Yeah.
It didn't address any of our needs, but it was a slick bit of business.
Well, I meant
And I
from the
do,
Guardians part, it was a slick bit of
from the
business.
Guardians part,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, it absolutely was. And so, Joel, I'm going to throw to you here because I am curious on your thoughts on Bo Bichette. I know that most likely this front office is planning on rolling with Bichette. He's probably a big part of their view on how this team is successful in 2025. But with the acquisition of Andre Jimenez, it does provide some opportunity to maybe move on Bichette sooner rather than later. Do you feel like this is a possibility? And even more so than that, um, do they have the balls to do it?
To move on from Bichette right now, I think honestly, what kind of makes sense to go off of what Johnny said was the Atkins, they're going to run this team back as a competitive ball club. So I think that there's a good chance that Bo and Vladdy start the year on this team. Houston is going to be the team that deals Tucker because they feel like they can deal Tucker and legitimately be competitive. I think it's a situation where Atkins will give us the lip service. He'll put up a lineup out there. And when we start to falter come the deadline, if Bo can put together 3 months of competent defense and a 310 batting average, 840 OPS, the value on him at the deadline is going to be more than it is right now. There's going to be a
Yeah.
team that is in it and desperate to move pieces that they were not desperate to move at this point, not understanding where Bo is. So it's kind of that reliance that he's going to come in healthy. He's going to come in hungry. He's going to come in playing for himself. Let's milk 4 months of that, trade him at that high point. Because even like, and how much could he really like lose in that process? He could really bolster his value. And I think it's a situation where potentially, it may happen with Vladdy as well, where you're moving those two pieces at the deadline, hoping that some team has the interest has come out of nowhere because the competitiveness is there. And here's your chance to make a run at the World Series, not at a good 2025. What you're talking about, that piece now means, hey, we're going to make a run at the World Series. This is what we're willing to pay for this piece at this point. So I kind of think that that's the situation. And then with Spencer Horowitz, it's just that one's a tough one because that was one guy who was lefty built internally who could handle righties. He had an 850. It's a career OPS. It's one stint in the major leagues, pretty much. It's over 2 seasons, but just I sit back and I think of like, oh, what does the lineup of Horowitz, Simeon, Teo, Lourdes, Moreno look like? All the cast off, like do the cast off lineup, and you're like, that's I kind of like that lineup a little bit, and then you're like, oh, those are the pieces that we got rid of for other pieces that either sit at the bottom of our lineup or maybe inconsistent of the bullpen. So, yeah, it's tough to lose offensive pieces when they consistently aren't being built internally. So
Very true. This is our special Christmas long toss, everybody. Thank you very much for following along. Hit that like button. We are going to go into our topics here. So we might wind up wrapping up. We're not going to push this to definitely be 2 hours. So if this only winds up being an hour and 45 minutes, I blame the front office for not doing enough shit for us to talk about. All right. So take it up with Ross Atkins. We're going to start here with our producer extraordinaire, the man who has made sure that this has taken place hiccup free. So please show Johnny a little love and making sure that this happened. And Johnny, what do you have for us for your topic for the day?
I wanted to know what everybody's dream baseball related Christmas gift would be.
Ooh.
If you got a Christmas gift that was baseball related, what would you want it to be? If Santa was being extra nice to you, it doesn't have to be like, give me one soda or whatever. It could just be like, it just has to be relevant to baseball somehow.
So this can be anything that we get baseball wise, or is it more specific to the Blue Jays in general, and what do we want to see? Okay.
The Blue Jays could be like going to the All-Star game, like whatever. Going back in time and shaking hands with Willie Mays.
Oh, so
there are no boundaries here. It's Santa.
This
it's
is
magic.
a fun topic.
give me a cornfield in Iowa. Give me the 30-year-old version of my dad coming out of a cornfield dressed as a catcher so I can have one last catch with him. Give me that. If I get one last baseball dream, that's probably it.
Oh,
That's
man,
beautiful.
Joel, you're going to make me tear up here, buddy. I love that one. Now mine seems stupid. Jen?
Well, I can't top Joel's.
Yeah.
And I as somebody who's lost their father, that would be, I guess, the ultimate. So now I'm really going to sound ridiculous. But I would love for somebody to give me a California road trip where I can hit up all the California ballparks.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. Have you been to any of them yet,
No.
Jen? No?
Nope.
Even the Coliseum?
Yeah.
Even the Coliseum?
I want to hit all of them. Yep.
Yeah.
Even the Coliseum. Just
Even the
hey,
Coliseum.
there it is.
To the dump we go.
Yeah.
That last game at the Coliseum, don't tell me you guys didn't want to be there, though.
Oh, yeah.
So badly. It looked so amazing. I mean, the scene looked amazing, not the stadium. But yeah.
I hear that.
No,
one.
I like that. I know I was lucky enough to see Petco last year, and that is just a beautiful stadium and an incredible baseball city. The way they've set that park up to just, you've got like your real baseball fans in the stadium, and they've got like this kind of like party area in the back where the views are horrible there, but it's just all the casuals. And I kind of like the separation of casuals to the hardcores. It's kind of a fun little thing. And then if you've never been to Dodger Stadium too, folks, that's another one that just, I think it's the third oldest stadium out there right now. And it feels like you're kind of in a football coliseum with how much cement there is everywhere. Like, it is definitely something that was built in the 60s, but also very, very cool. I love that one, Jen. I was on the same page as many of the people in chat here, so I'm going to read some of them, and I will just say that it's very much where I was. RC Cyber Warrior says, a new front office. Jeff Smart goes, Atkins and Shapiro being fired. And honestly, all I want is for my Toronto Blue Jays to be a team worth watching again. Because I'm going to put myself through the ringer and watch them anyways, because I'm a fucking masochist. So I'm going to watch them, even if they're horrible, even if I hate it, even if it doesn't even give me joy, which kills my wife, because I will watch baseball that will actually turn my mood from good to bad. And then she's like, well, why? Why? So I'm with all of you in chat there. We'll continue to go around the horn here. Jen, what is your topic for us today, my friend?
Oh, I don't get to have my Christmas gift?
Oh, please, Johnny. I'm sorry. Yes, your own topic. Answer your question. Where are you at?
So mine was, I want me and my extended family from the States, who are all big baseball fans, to be all together in the left field seats just beyond the wall in Skydome, 1993, Game 7.
Oh,
So that
yes.
one of us catches that Joe Carter ball. I just want to be
Sentimental and
there.
lucrative. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to be there for that. But like, all my good memories involve watching baseball with my extended family, usually down in Kansas City at Kauffman. I just got a lot of good
Very
memories
cool.
of watching games with them. So that's what I'd like, more of that.
Yeah, Kaufman's one that is on my list. Man, it's a cool stadium, Johnny.
It's a great stadium. It hasn't, like, they've had small renovations over the years, but it's mostly the same to what it was when I was going, as a kid in the 80s. And the best place to sit back then, you paid, I think it was $2 admission to go sit in the right field bleachers, just on the other side of the foul line there. Like, you're not in the outfield, you're just off the foul line at the back. And on a hot day, like those 38, 99 humidity days that happen in Missouri, you get the spray from the fountain, because the prevailing winds blow the spray from the fountain over, and you just sit there with your beer and get sprayed and like make fun of Dave Winfield, and it's great.
Yeah. Make fun of Dave Winfield. Love it.
Yeah.
All right, Jen. Number one, just thank you so much for toughing it out here. I know that you are as sick as a dog, and you have been here to complain every step of the way, and that's why we love you. What do you have for your topic for us?
Okay, mine's just a really simple, like, gut instinct type of question. Okay, it's kind of a two-parter, but they line up. So, what does your gut instinct tell you? Are fans going to be satisfied or angry with the Blue Jays come opening day? And what will happen at the trade deadline? In other words, are fans going to be happy with the offseason? Yes or no? And that first half of the season, what is that leading up to?
Ooh.
Gut instinct.
I'll take the lead. I'll take the lead here. My gut instinct is that, honestly, there's probably nothing that can be done that will please this crowd at this point. I think the fan base, having lost so much faith and respect in this front office, has eroded their view to be biased. And I'm in that category too, by the way, everyone in chat. I'm not taking shots here. I'm just saying the truth. It's like, a lot of people in outside markets looked at that Andre Jimenez trade and was like, what an incredible move, right? And I'm a Blue Jays fan, and I'm just like, yeah, but it addresses nothing we needed. So I personally think, even if they go out and wind up getting a Corbin Burns and Santander, I'm not going to say people will be upset with that, but I do think that people will be very lukewarm on jumping back in on this team without them doing some winning in the first month or two here. Winning solves everything. If this front office manages to field a good team, I think it's fine, but I really am doubtful that they are able to. So my guess is the fan base is frustrated and angry come the start of the season. And I think at the trade deadline, whether this team wins or loses, the front office will fuck up the trade deadline. It's one thing they are horrible at. It's my biggest bone to pick with them for years before the pivot, right? Like, obviously the pivot drove me nuts, but 2021, I still am so furious they didn't go all in at the deadline. 2022, same thing. Like, I don't understand why those weren't your moments to push in your chips, but that's where I'm at. Joel, how about yourself, buddy? Where do you think the fan base will be at come the start of the season? And what is your view on what will happen at the deadline? And I'll be right back. Sorry, guys.
All good. It's a situation where, like, Atkins has put himself in like a truly can't win scenario, because if he goes out and really empties the cupboard and gets everything that he can possibly get, then he's just walking down kind of the same route that Anthopoulos went down, and that that this front office completely chastised the moves of. So to be in a situation where that is your most logical move at this point, but when you do it, you become the team that you become the front office that you made fun of. So it's just like, that's a hell of a situation to be put in. I really don't think the moves are out there because I don't think that they put themselves in the position to attack what they need to attack. They put themselves to be in the position to be third in the Juan Soto deal. If you should have understood that coming into this season, that being second in the Ohtani race put us so far behind the 8 ball that we weren't able to properly attack free agency last year. So to then make that mistake and say we're going to go to the end with Soto before we can truly make decisions on what we wherever we finished in that race, and then be back at the situation where, oh, we're not in on Max Fried, or like, why weren't you attacking? Why wasn't Teo or Santander or one of these guys option number one? Why isn't your deficiency that you can go and win this race? Go out there, and if you're willing to go 700 million for Ohtani, if you're willing to go 730 million for Soto, the fact that you got lost in that singular pursuit of one player being the singular answer to all your problems, as opposed to being aggressive out of the gate. And I give Anthopoulos all the credit in the world for saying being the first person out of the Soto deal last year with a competitive team and going and getting Sale and going, this is something to make us better here and now. And that team, to lose Acuna, to lose Strider, and still be in the postseason chase last year, it shows you depth. It shows you that we're not a one-trick pony relying on one specific outcome to be a successful team. So I just don't think that when the Blue Jays are put into going their plan B or plan C, their plan A isn't even really thought out. So how can they fall back to a plan B and plan C and have that work in any way, shape, or form when plan A is absolutely ridiculous? So no faith. And I don't, but the shocking part is the fact that Rogers still will let Atkins be the guy to deal. Whether if they do make a deal, it's going to be Atkins pulling the trigger on that. And to me, that's the most shocking thing. The fact that he's given, still, that's Anthopoulos' commodity. That's still the biggest commodity that's been built by this organization in a decade. And, Atkins gets to deal it. For what? We don't know. But there's no faith because there's no track record of anything to have faith in.
And you know what? We're going into a decade here, folks. Like this is a pretty darn good sample size, and I sat here 3 years ago and argued with Mr. LaFlamme till I was blue in the face, right? Like Joel was never big on this front office, and I was like, listen, they've done a good job. I like where they're going. I have faith, and I am so far past that I just yeah, man.
Welcome.
Johnny, how about yourself, my friend? Where are you at? Do you think this fan base, is there any way to appease the fan base going into this season? And come the deadline, where do you think this team is at?
I think just based on previous years, at the beginning of the season, the fan base is going to be excited for baseball again, regardless. It's just kind of the way we run. We're like, and last year, like the product that was being put on the field was dumb, but we were still excited to see baseball again. So I don't see us all being like super disgruntled and bitter to start the season. I feel like we'll be excited, and then the shoe will drop very fast, and we'll go to very angry again very quickly, because I don't believe that they will make this team good enough to be better than fourth or fifth in the division. And as far as the trade deadline goes, no matter what happens, I think it's just going to be a massive embarrassment for the front office. It literally doesn't matter. Like, if they're not winning, it literally doesn't matter what they do. They sell off, they're admitted failures. They buy big. Well, if the team's not doing well and they buy big, which I don't think they do. But like, they could buy big, and it's like, well, what now? Like, I bet if they buy big, it doesn't even really help the team, and the team doesn't win in the playoffs, and it ends up a wasteful thing, like an Anthopoulos thing gone wrong. And then if they do nothing, or just do very little, which I think is the most likely outcome, because that's their play every trade deadline. It's just little minor things. And that's what I bet they will do, and I bet it'll be useless, and we're just going to suffer. Sorry, that was bleak.
Hey, this has been a little bit more of a bleak show than I was hoping it would be, but I mean, this is where we're at. So if there's defenders of the front office out there, prove us wrong. Like Atkins, Shapiro, if for some crazy reason long toss comes to your desk and there's a list of grievances, shove it up our butt. Make us eat it. Put a winning team on the field and all will be forgiven. I swear that's how this market works.
Isn't that how Festivus for the rest of us works? The listing of grievances.
That's right. Airing of grievances. Here we are. All right, so this is our Christmas special long toss. A very happy holidays to all of you in the chat here. We really do appreciate you following along. We've had anywhere between 80 to 110 watching pretty much the whole show. So thank you very much, Grounds crew. Hit that like button if you can, and if you're not subscribed to the channel, it does mean a lot if you do so. We are going to wrap up here. I'm going to throw to you, Joel. Last topic of the show. What do you have for us to discuss today, my friend?
My concept kind of comes to the way that obviously the architecture of the team or the Blue Jays Stadium has been approached to, obviously out of Toronto, it's to make a better fan experience. So they changed the walls and they did all of that, which led to a lot less run production. Now in Baltimore, their approach to Camden Yards, which is a beautifully designed ballpark, was to make it a little bit uglier, push the left field walls back, and that had a drastic effect on how the Baltimore Orioles won games. So it wasn't necessarily how the stadium looked. It was pretty much to stop, Gleyber Torres from consistently going off against them. But the fact that they built that stadium more for a winning mentality as opposed to aesthetic value. And now in the offseason, they go out and they grab Tyler O'Neill, and they're going to move the walls back. So this is a thing in Baltimore where they've gotten to the point where let's adjust the stadium design on a year-to-year basis for the potential benefit of this team. Now, it's funny because I've gone and I've looked at a lot of the stadiums and how they play. Johnny, you had brought up Kauffman Stadium, which is that is a hell of a place to hit home runs. And when you look at players in Major League Baseball, like Salvador Perez's 47 home run year that he popped out of Kauffman Stadium, 81 home games at Kauffman Stadium. That's like a 50 home run year for a catcher in any other market. Yeah. Fundamentally, he played for any other market, he would have had a 50 home run season as a catcher. And then on the other side of that, there's Cincinnati. There's Great American Ballpark, and the way that if a player, for example, Bobby Witt plays all of his home games out of Cincinnati, he probably has 25 career home runs more just over the course of 3 seasons. That's how drastic the effect that stadiums have. So my question is, will there be a team, not that Baltimore could actually be this first team, but somebody who really looks at stadium design from a year-to-year basis on how do we make our team better? Do we design the stadium around what our lineup looks like, what our outfield looks like? Is that come into play to be something where you will see stadiums consistently redesigned for the team that is going to field that field? I think that's my question.
I love this question. I will throw to you, Jen, to start off here, but I will say this. So I did look into this, and there is 0 rules in Major League Baseball to prevent you from changing the configuration of your ballpark from year to year. So this is totally within any organization's right to do. Obviously, you need to pay for the reno costs or whatever to do so. But when it comes to moving walls in and out, that's pretty insignificant. Jen, where do you think, like, we're kind of seeing it in Baltimore, aren't we?
Yeah, it's that little bit of, what extra edge can we get, right? That just little bit of innovation and, playing with the margins of things, quite literally and figuratively here, right? So do I think a team would do it like every year? That I don't know, but I do think if you were to build, like, if you were going to build a new stadium, right? And I don't know at what point a new stadium would be built for a Major League Baseball team, but if you were going to build a new stadium, you would almost design it as such, right? Almost like moving Lego pieces, if that makes any sense, right? Like that's what you would have at the forefront of your mind when you design the stadium, as opposed to like having to do these massive renovations. Like imagine trying to do that at Skydome, right? You would not be able to do that. But if the Jays were to ever build a new stadium, is that something that they would factor in? It's a really interesting idea. And then how does that affect your long range planning as a front office? How does that affect your analytics department? How does that affect your player development? I don't know.
Even
One
for
thing
you to say, we're going to go after this guy, we're going to go after this left-handed hitter, we can do things to make this more appealing, even for like 1-year acquisitions and stuff like that. It's really, I love the erector set outfield there, Jen.
Yeah.
That's idea.
One thing I will say is that I do think with these mega contracts we're seeing, right? Teams are investing major bucks in their young, developed talent to the likes we haven't seen in years. And I think it would be really silly of a front office to not sit down and decide who their core pieces are going to be, and then spending a little money to configure the stadium for these 15-year deals to kind of benefit the players they're investing all this money in, right? I mean, we just watched Juan Soto go to the Mets for $800 million with escalators. What's $750,000 to reconfigure the walls to see Juan Soto hit 3 extra to 5 extra dingers a year? I think it just makes good sense. Johnny, where are you at on this idea? Do you see it becoming more prevalent in the baseball landscape?
Yeah, my first two thoughts, one of them mirrored Jen's, and the other one was something else. So I was thinking, I know there's a technical word for it. I'll just call them transformers. So you have walls, including foul territory and your outfield walls, to be transformers.
That are robots in disguise.
You've got a more defensive team, you expand foul territory, that kind of thing. You've got a light hitting club, you just like keep the walls high so you can hit doubles and the other team can't hit them out, all that kind of stuff. The team that, they're, unfortunately for them, their stadium got really roughed up and they might need a new one. And what would it be? What more perfect team to have this stadium than the Tampa Bay Rays to constantly manipulate their stadium every year for their advantage? And I can totally see it. If the Rays can get a new stadium, I could see them, they're smart cookies down there, and I could see them doing that. And suddenly you have forget the roof at Tropicana and all that. You've got this transformer stadium that's moving in and out each year.
Foul ground territories expanding.
Yeah. I love it. All right, folks. Thank you so very much. We're going to wrap.
Sorry. I almost want to see that happen now.
Yeah.
I do too. I love the idea. And I know Adam Mack, he wasn't able to make it today, but this is where he would step in and be like, all walls should be 6 feet tall. All right. We're going to wrap up here. I do wish to say to everyone in the chat, a very happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope you enjoy your new year and all that sort of stuff. We really do appreciate you following along with us here on the walk-off over the year and the years for that matter. So a very hearty John Schneider tip of the hat to you all. Please do hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, it really does help to subscribe. Now, Johnny Eaton, our producer extraordinaire. Thank you so much for joining us, my friend. Where is the, I know that your album is fantastic. Your latest album you have out there. Do you have any shows coming up here? Johnny's situated in the Ottawa area, but is there anything folks can come see you do in the near future?
Not right now. I had a show back in November. It went really well, but I got really sick with COVID for like 2.5 months there, so I haven't been able to do much, and I'm just sort of waiting till the holidays are through to try to start booking shows again. But my music can be found on Bandcamp and my own website, johnnyeaton.com, if people are interested in it.
Check it out, folks. It really is a really gritty, bluesy, maritime-y kind of. I don't know how to describe it, but it's fantastic.
It's all
I
over
love
the
it, buddy.
place.
That's right. Baseball Jen, my favorite long toss aficionado. And I mean that with the most disrespect to you other two. No, but what's your Christmas looking like? How's the New Year shaping up for you? Where can people see your beautiful baseball mind on Twitter? What's your handle? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to getting through the next week and getting to a bit of a break because, like I said, I've been sick for almost 3 weeks now, so I really I need to shape up here, to be honest. But yeah, I'll be on Twitter, especially when rumors are flying about, hitting the refresh button. So folks can follow me at baseball_Jen with 2 N's, and yeah, I'm hoping to maybe pick up my Jays content in the new year. We will see.
Well, we look forward to it, and we'll be knocking on your door to get you back on the show here soon. So glad you could join us. Hope you feel better, and again, thanks for roughing this out, Mr. LaFlamme. So happy to see you making baseball content again. If you're on TikTok, folks, you need to follow him. Hey, Kami, you were a big Hollywood big shot there for a while, but you're back in Edmonton and making TikTok content again. Good for you, buddy.
Yeah, I realized that I shouldn't just let that entire thing go dormant the way that I had. And I take a nice 45 minutes of my morning and I carve out some content that I'm able to release throughout the day. And I've gotten more scheduled on it. And I realized how much I missed the daily discourse. Just put a video out there, put a thought out there, and have people love you, hate you, but just the conversation is great to partake in. So I definitely missed it. And yeah, it's nice to just be firing out baseball content again, of course.
It's been great. I've been loving, for everyone in chat who hasn't seen Joel's content, he's been on a bit of a RBIs actually matter rant phase, and I love it. It's beautiful. Turns out driving in runs does mean good things for your baseball team. All right. I'm Scott Belford. This is the walk-off. Thank you so very much, everybody. Again, a very happy holidays to you. We're going to call it